This meeting of the Classy Fragrance Society has been convened in order to discuss the definitions of class, refinement, and sophistication. Here to assist me in those definitions is Incident Diplomatique from Jovoy. Because to define sophistication, refinement, and class is to define this fragrance. Yeah, hey guys, what's up? Hope you enjoyed that corny introduction there. But for real, this is a stunning fragrance. My opinion, one of the classiest to ever exist. Certainly one of the classiest I've ever smelled. This is Incident Diplomatique from Jovoy. So before I get into this stunner of a fragrance, I'm going to go over the house of Jovoy a little bit. So Jovoy was actually founded back in 1923 by Blanche Avoy. And she released a line of fragrances. It was a small line. She only released a handful of fragrances. So a couple of these fragrances, Gardez-moi and Sévérème, were initially quite popular, but then throughout the years with the advent of large designer companies, Jovoy started to kind of just get swept under the rug, and they were virtually forgotten about for many decades actually. And it wasn't until 2006 that François Hénin purchased Jovoy with the intention of reviving it. So François Hénin was a French businessman who had spent a lot of time in Vietnam. While he was in Vietnam, he became enamored with the art of perfumery. So while he was in Vietnam, he actually opened up a distillation laboratory where he distilled, bark from trees, some different fruits, some different herbs. So he took that knowledge back to France with him, and he was inspired to resurrect a failing French perfume company. So he did his research, and I guess the history of Jovoy really resonated with him on an emotional level. And yeah, 18 years later, Jovoy has some of the best known niche fragrances in the game. So nowadays, Jovoy is a niche fragrance company. Yes, they manufacture their own fragrances, but they also have a large perfume store in Paris carrying a huge selection of niche and independent fragrances, and a lot of what they carry is very difficult, if not impossible, to find in other places. If you're ever in Paris, highly recommend checking out Jovoy's flagship store. Also, they have a couple of other locations worldwide. And yeah, so this one's going to be about Incident Diplomatique. Arguably their most well-known work, although Psychedelic from the same house is also pretty well known. But let's get into this one, shall we? Presentation here. So black box. It's plastic, but it's made to look like alligator skin. It has that pattern, looks kind of scaly, interesting. On the top part of the box here, we can see Incident Diplomatique written. And as we pull the inner box out from the bottom, we notice that Incident Diplomatique is actually written on this inside box here. So the inside box, very simple. It has a kind of a foam background, and there's a nice little bed for the bottle to lay inside, just like that. I really like this style of presentation. It's elegant, yet very understated, much like Jovoy's perfumes, this one being no exception. So the bottle here, another thing I like about Jovoy is the uniformity of their presentation. All the bottles look the same design. The only difference is the name of the actual fragrance is written on this side here. The bottles are very heavy, as are the caps. I mean, this thing, honestly, I think it could break the bottle quite easily. And that's saying something, because this bottle is like a chunk of glass. It's super heavy. Anyway, all the usual information on the bottom here. And yeah, if you've seen one Jovoy bottle, you've seen them all, because like I said, they are all uniform. They all look like this. Goodness gracious me, it's time to get a spray out of this thing. And absolutely amazing, the smell. So in the top, I get some mandarin and some Haitian vetiver. In the mid, I get some nutmeg and more Haitian vetiver. And the bottom is all about that patchouli and sandalwood. So this opens up with a big burst of mandarin. The mandarin in this is very rindy. It's not particularly juicy. It's more so about the skin of the mandarin. So rindy. It's quite bitter as well, but you do get that mandarin orange, slight sweet citrusy aspect as well. And in the top, it's mixed with some beautiful Haitian vetiver. So the Haitian vetiver in this is green, it's grassy, it's slightly woody, it's fresh, it's a little bitter, and there's a definite smokiness to this particular rendition of Haitian vetiver. I will admit though, objectively, some people could find the opening a little bit sharp, a little bit off-putting. I do not feel that way at all, but I can see how some people might find that. Anyway, drying down now in the mid, I get some nutmeg. So the nutmeg is warm, spicy. There's a bit of a sharpness to it. There's even a bit of a woodiness to it. And I find nutmeg also has just like a slight hint of nuttiness, something like that in the background. It's very detectable to me in the mid here. Adds a nice sharp spiciness, like I said, with a little bit of warmth, a little bit of sweetness, woody nuttiness. Amazing, amazing. And in the mid, I get more of that Haitian vetiver. And in the dry down, it's all about the patchouli and the sandalwood, but more so the patchouli. So the patchouli in this is boozy. It's a little bit camphorous as well. Definitely earthy. It's herbal. It's woody. It's got a touch of like an earthy sweetness to it. No chocolatiness in this whatsoever, thankfully. And that's mixed with some sandalwood. The sandalwood as well has a little bit of a booziness to it, some creaminess, and that soft woodiness we get. Little bit musky, if you will, in the background because of that sandalwood. Epic, epic fragrance in the classiest way possible. It's a statement maker without being complicated. It's actually a fairly simple, straightforward fragrance, but it is done just so elegantly. So mainly a vetiver patchouli scent. The particular type of vetiver, it's a smoky, like I said, Haitian vetiver. Now, the official note list also lists Java vetiver oil, which I do not detect in this. Java vetiver oil is quite smoky, and it has like a sort of a spicy tinge, reminds me of earthy saffron, which in turn reminds me of barbecue. I do not detect any trace of that in this. Although in another Jovoy offering private label, Java vetiver is prominently featured, and that one has that kind of smoky, maybe barbecue-ish nuance. Not here. It's got a freshness to it. It's definitely a fresh fragrance with a lot of depth to it. So the vetiver adds definitely some depth, but the patchouli, the bed of patchouli that this rests on is exquisite. The first half of the fragrance, like the first half of the life cycle, all about that vetiver, but in the dry down, the patchouli becomes really, really prominent as well to create a wonderful mixture, sharp, earthy, grassy, boozy, warm, slightly sweet. It's got so many components despite the fact that it's such a simple fragrance. Sophisticated in its simplicity, you know, relatively small note breakdown, but you know, you can tell there's a lot of development. Although, like I said, those main notes never really venture too far off. They're always present. So simple, yet so complex and so deep. Incident Diplomatique. Actually, the name of this, there's an interesting story behind it. So back during the testing phase of this, before it was released, François Hénin was testing one of the formulations, and he walked into an elevator. A female diplomat from a different country happened to walk in, and apparently she gave him a huge compliment. She said she absolutely loved the smell, and that's where we get the name Incident Diplomatique. And yes, of course, they stayed with that particular formulation, later bottled it and sold it, and that's what we get to. So versatility, I'll say this, if you're a mature gentleman, very, very versatile, all weather, all occasions, definitely. Super classy, but like, I think there's a little bit of a casual air to it, you know? Maybe some jeans and a t-shirt on a spring day with some sunglasses, maybe a blazer thrown on top. Casual, formal type of style. I would wear this out. I would definitely wear this to a meeting. Very versatile. However, it is quite mature. It's a mature fragrance. People my generation and younger probably would say, oh, this is gonna smell like an old man. So I will admit that there's a maturity to it, but it is not outdated. Doesn't smell like shaving cream. I mean, it's not an aromatic fougere or anything close to that. But the vetiver is very prominently featured. And vetiver is a classic perfume ingredient. It's been used in perfumery for a very long time. So I feel like a lot of younger people might get reminded of their older relatives when smelling something like this. I can definitely see how that's a possibility. But for me personally, I don't think it's outdated whatsoever. If you're mature, if you have a classy air about you, if you exude confidence, this is going to be really versatile. And also the performance on this is really good for a fresh fragrance. It is a really good performer. I haven't measured the actual projection, but it's probably close to an arm's length, but the projection lasts. Like this projects for a solid couple of hours. Very surprising considering, you know, at the end of the day, it's really a fresh fragrance. And the longevity too, nothing to sneeze at. It's like solid 8 hours on my skin all day long. It's gonna last. So having finished this description, citrus, there's some vetiver. A lot of people might be asking if this smells like Terre D'Hermes, and I will say that they are definitely the same style of fragrance, but there are some differences. They are not redundant whatsoever. So Terre D'Hermes is more focused on that citrus. I also find Terre D'Hermes to be sharper, and in the dry down, there's a little bit of like a sunscreeny characteristic, which a lot of times sandalwood can add. So in this one here though, in Incident Diplomatique, it's first of all richer. It's not so much about the citrus as it is about the vetiver and the patchouli. Also, there's a distinct smoky characteristic to this, and we get that Jovoy DNA. So Jovoy is known for a slight touch of booziness that exists in pretty much all of their fragrances. This is no exception. I definitely get that here as well. So while they are definitely in the same family, in fact, I would say like maybe first or second cousins, this one and Terre D'Hermes, this one here is just the superior fragrance in every way, including the performance. So I'll throw that out there. If you guys are fans of Terre D'Hermes, this is a step up. I would say check this one out. Price of this, North America, quite expensive, and they are only offered in 100 milliliter bottles. So I was able to find this one on Lucky Scent for 200 US. And in Europe, the going price for this at every single shop I was able to find, online included, is 145 euros. So in European Union, this is 145 euros just across the board. Although I have seen this once or twice, usually around Christmas time, going for closer to 120 euros. So, you know, look around and I guess try to get a discount on this. But I gotta say, most Jovoy fragrances are difficult to find at discounts. But, you know, there are more expensive fragrances out there, and the quality of Jovoy fragrances is through the roof. This particular fragrance company and their offerings, I would say, are pretty damn close to justifying their high price tag, and I would not say that about very many brands at all. But from what I know of Jovoy, super solid brand, great performance on most all of their fragrances, and the smells are just, although simple in a lot of ways, quite complex as well, and deep, and just masterfully blended. So that's been my review of Incident Diplomatique from Jovoy. Solid house, solid fragrance. Hope you've enjoyed it, gentlemen. Until next time, keep it real.